Life requires you to be both student and teacher. You can't just be someone who soaks in everything but never attaches meaning to what it is that they've soaked. That's what a teacher does. Students observe, they take instructions. Teachers get you to a certain destination. You can't just stop at, oh, I've got daddy issues. That's why I behave like this. You have to now be a teacher and say, that is what I have observed. Therefore, this is the meaning I'm going to attach to this. With this information that this behavior stems from the fact that I have daddy issues, what am I going to now do with this? Because teachers take you to a certain destination. Your lecturers take you to the destination of getting a master's degree, PhD, whatever. Lecturers, teachers take you to a certain goal. You have to be both in your life. You have to be both student, observer, taker of information. You take things in, you observe things, but you also have to be a teacher. You give things meaning. You take the things that you've observed and understand, is it going to take me to destination ABC? Hi. I'm busy. I'm busy with ABC. Wow, I didn't even plan that. My initials are ABC. I didn't even plan that. Wow, that's why I got so excited. Because, yeah, you gotta go to destination ABC. I'm not a destination. Hi, welcome to my channel. We are talking about being a student and a teacher because life requires you to dance between the two. This is the gospel. Okay. Life requires you to dance between the two. Certain seasons in life are going to force you to be a student, which is someone who observes things, who takes instructions, digests the meaning that they were given to life circumstances. A teacher is the one who also does observe, but instills discipline, assigns meaning to things in life, and then also guides you to certain destinations in life. You're gonna dance between the two in life, right? The dance is daily sometimes. The dance is legit daily. Think about it like in corporate, they always say to you, even though you got the job, you still have to learn. Yeah, stay on certain news tabloids, like subscribe to certain news channels because you're gonna have to learn more about the industry and everything. As much as in that you're being a teacher, you're being an implementer, in that you got your degree, now you're at work doing the thing that literally, like, you got your degree, you're doing the thing that you went to school for. But while you're implementing this thing, like helping your team get to X and X goal, like being a teacher, you also still have to be a student in that go look at the news tabloids, even though your season, the time of you actually being a student, sitting at a desk, learning whatever is over. It's not actually over, right? I think life, sometimes you'll be 70% teacher, sometimes you'll be 30% student, sometimes it's 70% student, sometimes 30% teacher. But the important thing is that you learn how to dance between the two. Because if you don't, you're gonna be those people who are so self-aware. I suck because of XYZ, and you're gonna be a person who's gonna be like, yeah, I'm so terrible at relationships, because you can give all the reasons to show that, hey, I'm so self-aware, or I'm so good at this because da 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 da. Yes, you're gonna be self-aware. TTT, clap hands for you. We love that for you. But then you can't just stop at self-awareness. You actually have to do things now to understand, okay, if this behavior stems from the fact that I've got daddy issues, that's why I behave like this. If you know that this is not an appropriate way to behave, you have to give yourself the tools to make sure that you do not behave in that way. That is where you now become teacher. This is where now you have to literally coach yourself and teach yourself that, okay, fine, we understand that this is your trigger and the trigger is because of daddy issues. But now you literally have to tell yourself that that's not an excuse for you to behave like a terrible person. You were a victim when you were 12. We understand. We hear you. We get it. But teacher says now that you can't continue to behave like that. If you want meaning in life, if you want to go further in life, you cannot cling onto victim mindset. You can't cling onto the identity of a victim if you're trying to get to destination B. You can't just stare at the fact that, oh, here's the diagnosis. That's a student. You've observed. Nice. You now have to give yourself treatment. That is the role of a teacher. That's why in life you're gonna have to be both student and teacher. Your brain works like this. This is literally the dance between your brain. How do you know that you've stopped at student level? If you're that person who understand, they can diagnose themselves to say my behavior is like this because XYZ. Congrats, you've mastered the student part. You've been curious, you've paid attention, you have, been mindful and you know your triggers, and yeah, you know that I act crazy in relationships because I've got trust issues. That's the job of a student. Well done. You now need to switch on and be a teacher. You have to step into the role of a teacher. Teachers don't just stop at, oh, this is what I've observed. Teachers know that if the goal is to get you to get a degree, they can't just say that I've observed that everyone who's in this class doesn't have a degree. Everyone who's in this class just has their matric certificate and they end at that. Teachers now give you the tools, the necessary tools and skills to get that degree. It's the same thing for your life. You have to be both student and teacher. You have to learn how to dance between the two. Yes, you've nailed the part where you know yourself, self-actualization, whatever. You've understood yourself, you observed yourself, great. But now there comes a part where self-mastery, where now you put things in place. You have systems that you put into place to make sure that if I know that I'm always flipping out on people or I have trust issues because I don't trust people because of daddy issues, you don't go from just observing this thing. You now have to be a teacher and attach new meaning to the trust issues thingy. You can't just stay a student and say, I don't trust people because my daddy left me. No, you now have to say, okay, as a student, this is what I've observed. Now you have to be a teacher and say that, but now if the cost, if njalo I just stay at that, oh, I don't trust people, and you now want to get to a point where you trust people, it doesn't help that you just know that you don't trust people. Teacher, the role of a teacher, self-mastery is now to say, how do I now take myself to a position where I get to trust people? That's the role of a teacher. A teacher now implements things. A teacher now gives skills, necessary skills and tools for the student to get to a desired result, a desired outcome. You have to do the same thing with your life. Again, I've said it before. Your brain is a learning engine. Your brain craves safety, satisfaction, the easy way out. Your brain just wants everything automated. So as you go about life, you're literally going to be a student, and then there's gonna come a point in time where you're gonna realize that I don't want to go down this road anymore. And then that's where now everything I've said, like literally all the videos before this, have just been focused on observation, which is you literally now say, okay, if I don't like this, why don't I like this? Why don't I like the way I've been going? Which coach has been like taking the steering wheel? Which coach has been advising me on why I make these decisions? And stuff. So that's the observation part. You get curious. You ask yourself, why am I even behaving the way I am behaving? Once you've gathered your research, you now have to become a teacher now and say, okay, I want to now get to point B. I want things to be different. You now have to literally, by repetition, always telling yourself that if we want to get to this place, we can't keep doing the things that got us to the terrible relationships in the first place. Your relationships suck because you're not vulnerable, because you don't trust people, because you've got daddy issues. Great. Student, 10 out of 10. Research is T. Now you have to be a teacher and say, okay, but not everyone is your dad. Not everyone is your dad. And every time you feel that anxiety of wanting to trust someone, or every time you feel like you don't want to be vulnerable because, hey, you have to now be a teacher and say, but your friend is not your dad. That person is not your dad. As a teacher, that's what you're supposed to do. You don't just stay in diagnosis. Oh, wow. I love how everyone is so self-aware in that, oh, I mean, like, you need anxiety, you need depression, you need this, that, and the third. I'm OCD, I'm a perfectionist, I am a what. But we've all just been like students and stayed at students. But now, the second part of life is that you have to be a teacher. How do you get out of that place? You now have to give yourself certain tools to get yourself out of, oh, this is just what I've observed to now. I need to implement new things in my life to get me to new destinations, and destinations that actually matter, destinations where there's actually quality in this, right? Your brain is literally a learning engine. The more you repeat something, the more it's going to be like ingrained in your brain, in your mind, to say, this is how we react to a situation. So even as a teacher, you have to be, the way a student is so diligent in repeating the thing that they've been taught, as a teacher, you also have to be diligent in making sure that, yay, we're not going to go down that road. As a teacher, you have to be so diligent in being disciplined to say, we're not going down that road. You literally have to be in your head and say, when you feel the anxiety, the fear of not wanting to be vulnerable, as teacher, you literally have to always be talking to that voice and say, but this is not an excuse for you to give into the fact that you're gonna close up and everything. And that voice has to be, it may take you years for that voice to be loud, but you have to continue to make sure that that voice becomes louder than the voice of the student. Because now your brain, if it's a learning system and you've learned that, hey, vulnerability is a terrible thing, and that learning came through repetition, lived experiences, lived experiences and whatever, you have to now give yourself the same amount of time in learning that, okay, vulnerability is safe. Sometimes it's not enough that you have to just say that vulnerability is safe. You're gonna have to be put in situations where you understand that, okay, I'm gonna have to be vulnerable. I can't just say that vulnerability is a safe thing. You have to act, you have to do the thing. When now you implement it, you're going to be put in situations where you have to exercise that vulnerability to give your brain evidence that it is a safe thing. Because sometimes certain things really need emotional backing for it to have impact. For it to have impact, it needs to be backed up by emotions, depending on how you're wired. It has, not even depending on how you're wired, most people, it has to have emotional benefits for you to go back to it, So you have to literally repeat certain things in life until you get that emotional reconciliation that you wanted, that emotional connection to understand that, okay, vulnerability is safe. You're only going to get that by literally being vulnerable over and over and over again. Teaching is a process of repetition. You don't just teach one, now 1+1, high one, and expect them to get it. You don't teach a child 1+1 the first time and expect them to get it. Because in their mind, things in their head literally have to change structures to understand, okay, when I put this number and this number together, apparently it's supposed to give me 2. Teachers don't just teach a student a lesson once and expect them to get it. No, especially depending on the levels of life that you're in, teachers often, what do? They repeat it. They will say, we're spending a whole week on this section so that you can understand and get to a point where 1+1 is equals to 2. And when I come to you and I say, what's 1+1, you're gonna say 2. That's the thing of a teacher. You don't just teach yourself something once and then expect to get it. No, teaching is a continuous process. Every day, baby steps, grace, baby steps, grace, baby steps, to understand that you're legit not gonna get this thing right the first go. The same way a child does not understand 1+1 the first time they were taught it, they need time, they need repetition. It's the same thing with your brain. You have learned certain behaviors for so long, for 6 years. You've learned, not even for 6 years. How old are you? For 30 years, you've learned that vulnerability is not a safe thing. Don't expect that, hey, in the next year you're gonna understand that, oh, it is a safe thing. Glory be to God. If it does happen in a year, praise God, because wow, he's a miracle worker. He can legit renew your mind, and in a year you get it. But sometimes there are things that are gonna require time, hello, a long time for you to understand that. But the important thing is that you always remember that the goal is to make sure that vulnerability is safe, for you to understand and sit in the fact that, okay, vulnerability is safe. Yeah, but legit, life is gonna require you to do a dance between the two. Today you're going to be a student, tomorrow you're going to be a teacher. Sometimes you're both student and teacher in one day. But the important thing is that you don't just stay a student, especially when it comes to things that you're learning here, because you're always observing things and you're always teaching yourself something. Whenever you hear an alarm and you press snooze button, guy 1, guy 2, 3, end of the week, it's launched in your brain that you've told yourself that whenever I hear this snooze, when I hear the button, the response is snooze. That's how your brain works. I don't know how many times I must say, but if you want yourself to understand something, repetition. You repeat it always. You continue to repeat it, and I promise you, you will learn that thing. It's going to stick in your head. it's gonna stick in your head. So you're always literally learning something. Your brain is on the lookout to learn something, but at the same time, you always have to make sure that, am I teaching myself the right things? Are you teaching yourself the right things regarding emotions? As a student, you go and observe there, like, okay, if I've learned that emotions are terrible, but now I've gone through life and I've realized that moving with the mentality that emotions are terrible has gotten me nowhere. As a teacher now, you have to understand, okay, but like, where do I want to go now? Where do I want to go with this? And you now have to teach yourself, you literally have to be in your head talking to yourself that every time you're confronted with a situation that requires you to speak on emotions or to tap into your emotional side, you now as a teacher have to motivate yourself and say like, hey, do it, don't run away from it. Because if you're running away from it, then instead of actually teaching yourself to tap into emotions, you're now just teaching yourself another lesson, which is that we just avoid things. We're just gonna run away. Better than what I was, but it's not where I want to be. That's what you're teaching yourself. So literally, like, what are you teaching yourself as a teacher? As a teacher, have you even taught yourself anything? Or you're just a student, or pillar or observer, or you haven't even been a student or a teacher, or you've been an unconscious student. You've just been a sponge, an unconscious student who is now an adult and has never like employed curiosity in their life, and now you're just living life on other people's terms and you don't even know it, and you wonder why you're miserable. You're gonna have to legit be both student and teacher. Students observe, yay. Students observe, students are taught. Teachers literally teach. Teachers guide you to a certain goal. They guide you to a destination. That's a teacher, that's a leader. Someone who's holding your hand and ensuring that we're gonna get to this goal through all the setbacks, through all the failures, whatever the situation is. A teacher is gonna make sure that if the goal is for you to get a degree, my babes, you're gonna get that degree no matter what. No matter what. That's what a teacher does. And that's what you also need to do with yourself. Don't just stay a student observing everything, but be a teacher. A teacher is the one who assigns meaning to a student. Many people have taught you throughout this life. You've learned from social media, you've learned from friends, you've learned from family, you've learned from culture, you've learned from society, you've learned from your faith. You've learned from everywhere, right? Because you're always in student mode. But then there comes a point in time where you also have to now be a teacher. Instead of allowing everyone else to teach you stuff, you also have to now start teaching yourself things. You have to now be a teacher in your own life and teach yourself things. You have to assign meaning to things. You have to assign your own meaning and value to certain things in life. You have to get to the bottom of what does success mean to you. Assign value for friendship, relationships. What does it all mean to you? That is now the role of a teacher, a leader, someone who's going to get you to a certain destination. They assign meaning to certain things. Students just take that meaning and go with it. They implement the meaning, and that's all they do. That's it from me. Until the next time you see my gorgeous face on your screen. Bye.